So next we have Carlo Minotti. I'll not do Control-Alt-Delete again. There you go, got that. So, Carlo.
Hello, I'm Carlo Minotti. I come from PSI in Switzerland, in Zurich, close to Zurich. And I'm going to explain a little bit what Silog is. So by training, I'm a software engineer. And I work in data curation group. Okay, so a little bit of context. So this is how we see, in general, a user journey from the proposal to the experiment to the eventual paper. So there is some sort of planning, creation of the experiment, then curation of the metadata, then some sort of later access for processing, analysis, and eventually the paper. So where we stand as a team, we provide one data catalog, one cycle data catalog, which should help the scientists address these 2 points, these 3 points, and then we provide Silog, which is what I'm going to talk about. So Silog kind of follows the user journey throughout the experiment. So Silog is an e-logbook, so an electronic logbook. So what should it do? It should enable scientists to do note-taking. It should have suitable permissions and support, in general, notes which are usually unstructured. So upload of files, organization, to-dos, it should be searchable, and usually scientists want data to be backed up. Yeah, and also usually they just want the PDF because it's a better known format. Yeah, so let's go through those features. So we provide authentication and authorization. It works by delegating our PSI identity provider. So any PSI user has access to Silog. And then you get here. Basically, once you're here, we show what we call logbooks. So these are annotation on a particular experiment. And for example, here they are running an experiment. They have a short description, a title, the group which has access to it. And then once you go inside, you see further details. Okay, the other screenshot, it's kind of the same, just shown in a different way if you want a more compact view. Some sort of Google Drive view, let's say. This is how you would interact with it. So you can create logbooks. You can also do, let's say, if you are, I don't know, in a meeting, you want to take notes, then in principle, you could use a logbook. You would select, okay, this doesn't apply if you're in a meeting, but if you're doing an experiment, you would select the instrument you're using. And there is logic by which the members of the beamline, basically the manager of the beamline, have access, read access to all logbooks which are created. And in addition to that, you say who owns the logbook, basically who can read and write and eventually delete, and who can read. Basically, it's a kind of a sharing functionality. Yeah, so this is what you would see if you go inside. Inside, it's a kind of a chat-based organization. So this side of the screen, it's basically a place where you type messages. It supports kind of some features, and here it's where you do like to-dos or you pin down tasks you still have to do or that you have completed. Already here okay, color choice wasn't the best, but you see some features that it supports that basically tie back to the first slide. So you can search. Basically, you can find the entries that you wrote, I don't know, like months ago, years ago, whatever. You can, you know how many tasks you have to do. You can pin more. You can delete. And then you can also edit messages as you would do in Slack or WhatsApp or whatever you use. And it supports also code snippets. And you can tag data. And this is fairly important because then you can later on use these tags to search for the entries you are interested into. Yeah, okay, and then PDF download and stuff like this. This is the mobile view. It's just to say that it's mobile friendly, so you can also use it from your phone. And it's usually fairly useful whenever you have to take pictures of the setup, for example. There is a Python SDK. Which supports basically main injection of messages from, let's say, automated clients. And it also can subscribe to a particular logbook. So if you want to stream the messages from the Python client, you can do. Okay, more technical, this is kind of the, sorry, one very important feature here is that this is collaborative. So it is connected to, let's say, the database, and then as a user, I see also messages in real time from other users. So it's kind of really a chat between members of the experiment. So in terms of technology, this is kind of a standard web-based architecture for a web-based service. So we rely on an Angular front end, on a Node.js backend, so based on TypeScript. And we store data in a MongoDB, which is then connected to the WebSocket. So this WebSocket, which is forwarded then by the backend to the front end, it's what provides live feedback. And then, as I said, we have to connect to the PSI infrastructure. And we do that by basically for every experiment proposal that you submit, you get created automatically a logbook on which you can write all your nodes. Yes, this is kind of an infrastructure overview of how we do. So basically, we have a dedicated Kubernetes cluster. It's actually not only for this service, but it's in general for our team that we manage internally, on which we deploy Silog. And then we deploy Silog through CI/CD pipelines, which are in our GitHub repository that connects to the Kubernetes cluster directly. I mean, since it's a Kubernetes cluster, it's heavily based on Docker, so the GitHub registry also contains the Docker images. We monitor everything through our Grafana cloud instance, and we do backups in a secondary cluster that we also provide as part of the data infrastructure. This is S3 based, so basically the backup is compatible to any S3 provider. And the last thing is that, again, we have to connect to PSI, and to connect to PSI, we simply use our OIDC keycloak through IDP delegation and the Python interface to Silog for beamline messages during the experiment. This is all replicated 3 times, actually, one for production, one for QA, and one for development. So we do development canary and production deployments. Yes, maybe a very quick note here. We also have a reporting tool, which is this Metabase, which allows us to have statistics on the use of the tool, and in general, on the number of messages that we have in the tool. And we have rolled out this last year, more or less. And from last year, we have more than 1,500 logbooks. So this would be kind of, you can imagine, like if you had a paper notebook, it would be a page in a paper notebook, you can imagine. And almost 50,000 messages in this logbook, so kind of a heavy use. Yeah, some quick references. Sorry, I didn't put the QR. And actually, thank you.
Okay. Any questions for Carlo? Paul?
Your task list was very interesting. Have you thought about making that sort of mandatory for some things? So, for example, if you're setting up a user, you want to check the energy, you want to set a calibration, there's a set-defined list of tasks that someone must do.
So this whole view, it's customizable. So you could also have other widgets. That's just a complementary comment. Then, sorry, not what I wanted to do. Then, as I said here, both here and here, you can have some sort of programmatic approach. So basically, you have any client, HTTP client, then we have a Python SDK that writes. So that constraint that you're mentioning, it's not implemented, but could be implemented as part of the client from one particular beamline. Like if you have this particular logbook from a beamline, then the first thing it's done during logbook creation is also a creation of the tasks.
Yes.
Users tend to come to multiple facilities for one sample or proposal, and they might also have an e-log which they use themselves in their own group. Do you mandate people must use this for every single experiment, or how do you deal with this?
No, so we don't enforce the choice of any particular tool, not only logbooks in general, but there is some sort of let's say Python tool which converts from e-log to Silog. So in case you want to move from one to the other, you should be able to do.
Thanks.
It seems like a very powerful interface. What is your long-term archival format for this kind of almost metadata? Yeah.
Yeah, so there isn't at the moment. So since it relies on a Mongo database, there is kind of full freedom to store what you want. What we do here is that, so basically this would be messages that belong to a chat. So relations are correctly covered in Mongo, just to say that there is somehow a data format. Then this data format hasn't been defined yet. What can be done at the moment is to download the PDF. So that's the closest thing that we have to a standard format. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm reluctant to ask you a question as your department head, but when did the summary view go in? Can you actually sort on that on the lab books?
Which one? This one?
Yeah, when did that go in?
This one, it's kind of fairly new. But
okay, I'm just checking. And is that sortable as well, or
no?
is it just...
I mean, if you ask me, there is no decision yet. I think it doesn't really make sense to have two. There will be a single one, table-based, where you can sort, filter, and regroup columns. Yeah, I think that's
certainly for instrument scientists, that list is going to get quite long when they got.
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, in that case, thank you very much again, Carlo.
Thank you.